There's a lot of language today about cooperative learning and cohorts. And cohorts and cooperative learning, and we as teachers and our students in our classes are supposed to be identifying best practices. And that little montage of pictures is quite interesting because it started off with Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page identified the best practices of Elvis, believe it or not. It was Elvis that inspired him. Eric Clapton studied relentlessly Robert Johnson, old blues music. That's what made Eric Clapton. Pink Floyd, guess what? American R&B. Can you believe it? They would listen to American R&B, late 60s, early 70s, to craft their sound. And then this last picture, this is what most fascinates me about it. So there's Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. They get together and they create a cohort. They started studying and listening to the music of Muddy Waters. They would listen to the music, Mick would try to sing like it, Keith would try to play like that. They would learn and identify when he started, when he stopped. How does he get that vibe? What gives you the goosebumps? How can we identify these things? And what you'll see is that the process by which they did it is eerily similar to the process by which we do it. Now, our pedagogy does a lot of great things for our students. Lowers the affective filter, creates a safe space. But let's talk about Mike and Keith. These are the three things that they did when they created their cohort, when they decided to study best practices. And because they had a low affective filter, they were all on the same page, they were able to accept when they failed. And when they couldn't figure something out, they hit it again, they hit it again, they hit it again, and then they moved forward. And they created the Rolling Stone. That is incredible. And it all came from this cohort that decided to study the music of Muddy Waters. Now this last part, this passion, is key. Bringing us all back to why we're here. The passion that you bring to the classroom every morning is stunning. I was a teacher, many of us were teachers and staff. Every day that you walk into the classroom, life happens for you before you get there. You might have had a bad day the night before, something horrible might have happened, you might be sick, your children might be sick. But every morning you walk in and you're smiling and you're happy. It's because you're so passionate about what you do. I wish there was a way that I could identify that as a best practice and make that best practice replicable for the rest of the country. And I thought about it and I figured, you know what, we can. Because that is what our movement is. Our movement is spreading across the country and we are blowing up. We are blowing up everywhere. Yesterday, I felt like I was in a revival, and Dave was like, "Where's Nashville? Where's San Francisco?" You know, I wasn't from anywhere. I just want to be like, "I'm here too." And I got that energy. And the best way that we can take that best practice of passion and move forward is just to share the word. Just share Modern Band with other people. So, I had the opportunity to listen to John Seely Brown speak at a conference. And John Seely Brown has kind of become a spokesperson for educational reform. And I was sitting in the room, there was 9,000 people in the room, and he's talking. He's telling this surfer story. And while he's talking about it, he's talking about cohorts and cooperative learning and low affective filters and creating a safe space. And it is taking everything in me to hold on to my chair so I don't leap up and I'm like, dude, wait, we got this. Change the subject. We already figured it out. We already know how to do this. Let me get up and show you a little he's wrapped up. Now, the story that he shared about surfing that I want to share with you is that the little kid in the middle of this picture, his name is Dusty Payne. So when Dusty Payne was 12 years old, he decided he wanted to be the best surfer in the world. So how did he achieve his goal? He created a cohort, 5 of his best friends, group of 6 kids. Every morning, they identified a new best practice. They found a YouTube video, they found something to inspire them. And it was one surf trick, one tiny little thing. Before school, they'd all go to the beach, they'd all get on the waves, and they would master that trick. And if they didn't master it that day, they spent all day trying to figure out how to do it. The next morning they get up, they watch the video, they go out, they try to do it again. This goes on for about 5 years. Dusty becomes the first world championship surfer from Maui. That's a pretty cool thing, right? Now, the beautiful thing about this is 5 of those 6 children went on sequentially to also be the world championship surfer. 5 of the 6. Now, to this day, when they travel around the world, guess what they do? They find a best practice. They figure out how to take that next step of innovation. And then all of a sudden they figured out, we've done it all. We've figured out how to do this. How can we make it better? So they came up with curve jumping and adjacencies. If we can go back to the slide before this, you'll see these weird things going on. They explored so much of surfing that they actually figured out that if they go to an adjacency and look somewhere else for a new idea, they can get a best practice from a completely separate source. They took skateboarding and snowboarding, day by day, video by video, to surfing. So now, if anybody watches a surf competition, it's not old school people riding on waves, it's this. Now, if you go to the next one, after they transformed surfing for 10 years, they ran out of tricks for best practices. So the 6th child from that picture decided to look at another adjacency, BMX, motocross. And there's this wacky thing where they hold onto the handlebars and they stick out, and then they do that where they're in the middle of the air, they get to the top of the jump, and they get back on the bike and they go down. Well, he figured out how to do it on a surfboard. Turns out, this guy is disabled. And it turns out that he cannot compete. So the World Championship Surfing body identified him as the true innovator of all these best practices, and they gave him an honorary championship. Which is pretty cool. Now, inside of everybody's bags from yesterday, or bags that you have today, there's a book. And it's a book of best practices. And there's no surf stories in there, I promise you. Inside of this book are 40 best practices that came from you. Everybody in this room. We asked those of you in this room to share your best practices for modern band with us. We had an overwhelming response, and in no particular order, I said, these are the 40 I'm going to run with. 38 of those best practices I have never even heard of. I've never even dreamed of doing. I am so thankful for having the opportunity to see them. So I divided it into sections. The first section we're talking about is collaboration. And that's key because what are we all doing? We want our kids to perform in band. When you hear your supervisors and administrators talk about cooperative learning and differentiated instruction, guess what? You got it. You are a master. Because that is everything of what we do. Now, you've heard me talk enough. This is the most humble John Floor. Where's John? Wave, John. John does some amazing things in his classroom, like many of you do. But I asked John to put together a video to share. Thanks so much for sharing that. Now, one of the beautiful hidden gems in there is not so much the division of the class, but having a cooperative learning atmosphere in your modern band class where students who've already learned how to play certain chords instruct the other kids how to play those same chords. So you, as the facilitator for the modern band, can then focus on arranging and stage presence and all those other things that you have to work on with the children. So it's a great lesson. So Anthony DeMasso, where's Anthony? Anthony sent over a thing on song math. I apologize, but that best practice, which was on page 2 of the book, for some reason it did not print. I'll be sure everybody gets an email with this when we get back. Now, song maps are a funny animal. What you see up here is a song map of Adele's Rolling in the Deep. And you notice it's just a bunch of boxes, and it's labels of what part of the song it is, and it gives some lyrics so you know where you're at. Now, what you'll notice is that we as music teachers, whatever textbooks we're using over time, use these. But it's okay that they use it because it's for jazz, or it's for classical, or it's for folk music, or nursery rhymes. Why can't we do it? Why can't modern band use a simple graphical analysis? Why can't we have our kids just squiggle squirrely lines on a piece of paper and show us how they feel in that song and where everything's mapped out? This tiny little best practice takes you as a modern band teacher where the principal's like, I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. Then they see it and they're like, wow, this is awesome. The kids understand it, they get it, and they demonstrate it. And what did you do? You took 2 minutes of your class to have them make a song now. What you'll see in the lesson is that he has the kids do it together, collaboratively. You'll have a chance to read that another time. So, one of the funny things about collaborative learning is how daunting it is to us. Some of us see students once a week. Some of us have the same students for an entire year. Other people in this room are cycle teachers. You have 500 kids walking in and out of your classroom. You got 40-minute periods. You can't spend 10 minutes putting together a cohort and wasting 10 minutes instructional time. We know we can't, but we so desperately want them to work together, so how do we do it? So we have to identify what I call this pyramid of performance inside of your classroom. Come up with one set of ideas of where everybody exists on day one. Oh, this kid is going to be good at lead singing. These kids are going to be great on the guitar. These kids are going to be great on the bass, and these 5 guys are all going to get a shot at the drums. It's just a starting point to save you 10 minutes of class. Then as you switch the kids around in the pyramid and you start singing and you start playing the drums, it doesn't matter that you had a plan at some point, but only you, as the professional educator, can identify the needs of the student. So with that, I scoured the globe. Well, not really. It was the #1 video on YouTube. This video is of Walk Off the Earth performing Gaudier's Somebody That I Used to Know. This little video got 152 million views. That's more than the populations of most small countries. Now, it looks great, right? 5 guys, 5 people playing on the guitar. I'm not saying you have to do this, but check this out. If you have a clear division of labor, if you have kids focused on what they have to take care of within that modern band, anything's possible. What you'll see is 5 separate parts. Maybe with the exception of the lead singer, none of the other parts can stand alone. They can't. But when you put them together, check this out. So what you'll see is that each of them had a very prescribed role. The next slide. And so we have a drummer, we have a lead singer, we have rhythm guitarists, and they're all kind of figuring it out on their own as professionals. But you guys have to identify who's who in your classroom. Now, if you look at the next one, it doesn't only happen on guitar. It can also happen on other instruments. So, accidentally, we stumbled. Where's Tom? Where's Tom? Tom? Hey, Tom! I'm doing a workshop we were in Jersey City, New Jersey. Oh, yeah. And I asked Tom, hey, do you want to do one of your demos from class with these teachers so they can get a real feel of how modern band exists in the drum set scenario? He's like, yeah, sure. He turns to John Floor and he said, any of the workshops I've done in the past few years, if you've had a chance to see that, you've seen that I've done this weird thing that we've just labeled the power chord multiplier. It's this basic concept. The entire lesson plan is outlined inside your best practices book. The concept is that after you've taught your class how to play a power chord, you limit the real estate on the neck of the guitar, say maybe, for example, the first 5 frets, and you have them compose using numbers and sliding their hands up and down on the 6th and the 5th strings. And then you have them create something, share it with somebody else. It's based on a very traditional cooperative learning strategy, think, share, share. But that's not modern band. So we customize a little bit so that it's get into pairs, compose a song in 60 seconds, and then teach somebody else how to play the song you just wrote. Can that happen in any other class but a modern band classroom? I don't know how that's even possible. Even if it was a poetry class, it would take me 60 seconds to get the cap ready off the pen so I could write down something. Now, what I'd like to do is an experiment. We're going to do a do now. Right now, we're going to do a variation of this. What I would like everyone to do right now is to turn to your left, turn to your right. Find a partner. Pair up. If you don't have a partner, if you're that third person, there's no way to your left and right, just make a group of 3. That's totally fine. A group of 3 is good. All right. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Now you have a partner. I'm about to start a timer for 60 seconds. In that 60 seconds, you are not allowed to say anything else other than the word do. You and your partner are going to write a simple 4-bar melody. Ready? Go.
Is this a harmonize or a melody?
How many bars? 4 bars. Okay, 4 bars. Okay.
Now, without using any other words besides the syllable do, when we start the timer, you're going to turn to somebody who is not just your partner. And if you were on this side, furthest to this side of your partner group, I want you to sing and teach that do melody to the person on that side of your pair group. Ready? Go.
What else?
Teach it to your Now let's switch gears. This seems to be happening an awful lot on the internet these days. Yes. Guess which group is conspicuously absent from these things? Little kids rock. I believe that we can do this. What you're going to see is a student, a music student by the name of Steve. He wrote a very simple Celtic melody on a melodica. He posted it onto a forum, and then people he's never met, nor probably will he ever meet, posted their versions of his simple melody and wrote variations of it. Then Steve sat down at the computer and he took his favorite ones and he did this. Now, you can do this, and here's how. We have the hang. On the hang, we have the best and brightest teachers of music, whether they're a music teacher or a science teacher that teaches a rock band after school. You go onto the hang, you post videos, you post photos, you post audio, you ask questions, we work together. You can have somebody in Atlanta, Georgia, have a melody, post it on the hang in a blog roll, send it off, contact the teacher in San Francisco. You'll have an entire class of students in San Francisco write their version of that melody, and you'll have 30, 40, 50, 60 different versions of that and accompaniments to that you can make a video. I would love if we started doing this. And I know we can do this because I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of your videos. All we have to do is follow that simple best practice and work together to make something like this. The last two examples of collaboration kind of tied into creativity. And of course, one of our core values for actually delivering our pedagogy in the classroom is improvisation, creation, composition, writing songs. The second section of your book focuses on that and why it's important. Now, this is a brain. And I was curious about something. If I'm a teacher and I have 15 kids jamming on guitar in my classroom, and my principal walks by and doesn't think that I'm engaging the brains of these students, he's going to walk in and say, wait, and office, 3:30. Now, I can understand that viewpoint, and we're changing that viewpoint. To change it, here's a little knowledge for you. In the center of this picture, there's these orange cones. That's the hippocampus of the brain. The hippocampus of the brain is where all long-term memories are stored. Frightening, right? Those tiny little things. Now, you see this nebulous shape around it, that green circle? That is the music and auditory sections of the brain. Now think about that. That means that all of your long-term memories are constantly surrounded by sound and music. That nebulous orb is the only thing that takes random sound waves and turns it into music. Now, there was a doctor by the name Charles Ling from Johns Hopkins University that was so fascinated by this that he actually did a study from 2008 to 2011 where he was trying to link this to something else. He took a jazz pianist, put him inside of an MRI, a magnetic resonance imaging machine, had a keyboard strapped to his lap. Dr. Lim sat in the room and traded floors with him. They traded floors in the piano, doing piano comping. And guess what they found? Guess what they found? It wasn't even using, his brain wasn't even using the music section of his brain. His brain was using the language section of his brain because he was communicating. He was talking through the instrument. So you don't have to say, yeah, music is kind of like a language because. You don't have to say that. No, music is most definitely a language. And improvisation is not only a language, but we have scientific proof that it's a language. Now, everybody will be receiving this PowerPoint, print it out, shout it from the rooftop, put it up on the walls of your classroom, and if you have that unfortunate instance where somebody says, oh, no, not in my school, just be like, okay, can I show you something? Now, the next thing is Mark Hale. Where's Mark? Mark Hale. In this video, Mark talks about the pentatonic scale. And why I really am excited about this best practice and why it is inside of your books is because I've traveled all over this country and not everybody's improvising with their students. And I find that most often it's our own affective filters preventing us from teaching it to the students because it's hard. And not everybody's a professional guitarist. I didn't touch a guitar until I walked into my first Little Kids Rock workshop. True story, when I walked into my first Little Kids Rock workshop, I had a brand new guitar. I couldn't care less what Dave said or what anybody else said. I wanted my free guitars and I was getting the heck out of it. After about 45 minutes of time passed by, I got them up to the program, I woodshedded, and here I am. Changed my life, absolutely changed my life. So, how can I get everybody to lose that affective filter so that they can teach pentatonic chant? Check this. Real quick, Mark, can you shout out the grade levels you do this with?
Third and fourth.
Third and fourth grade. Every day. How's that for a best practice? How's that for a shot in the arm? Couldn't believe it. I wouldn't have believed it if they sent it to me, but I happened to witness it in Nashville. I was floored. Absolutely floored. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is share this with you. Of those 40 lesson plans, that power chord multiplier was one that existed in the training. This lesson plan exists inside the new teacher's manual. The other 38 lesson plans and best practices in your book are hot off the press, brand spanking new, and don't exist anywhere else. This talks about recreating a song using only vocals, improvisation. And if you read through it, you'll see that Chuck, Spiker, our curriculum director, you'll see that Chuck makes reference to Bobby McFerrin. So, light bulb, we're going to sing all the different parts. Okay, great. But, again, let's assume lowest common denominator. Let's say you are the teacher that has 500 students, and you are the teacher that has 40 minutes a week with each of said students. And if you waste 10 minutes explaining something, you're losing instructional time. You don't have to teach all the instruments over again to a drummer so that they can do drums with their mouth. To prove it, let's listen to this. What I'd like to do is this half of this side of the room right now, with me. Bum 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 bum. Now keep going. Don't change, don't add lyrics, don't change key, it's just a riff. Keep going. Now, this half of this side of the room, use your mouth and make drums. Check, 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 check. the room, what I want you to do is do the rhythm guitar. Dun, 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 dun. Ba-ba-da, ba-ba-da-da. Ba-da. Keep going. Now, this half of this side of the room, improvise vocals. Sing it out. Any notes, anything you want. Yeah, louder. Yeah. One more time, Drew. Oh, yeah. One, two, one, two, one, two, three, and yeah. How was that for a best practice? You don't even need the guitars, you don't need even the bass, you don't need the drums, you don't need anything. All you need people to do is just sit there and just have it.
Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about
That is brilliant. It's just sheer brilliance. Just give the ownership to the kids. I wanted to share one thing from you from my classroom back in the day. I was curious as to how much a group of students could actually do on their own. And I created this social experiment. But there was really no thought to it. It wasn't like I thought, hey, I'm going to do this experiment. It was like, I want to do this. How on earth do I do this? I wanted to have a musical written by all the students in the school. How on earth do you do that? You need parents, you need teachers, you need students, and everything has to get facilitated. So what I did was I created a 2-month curriculum map. That 2-month curriculum map outlined everything from set design, choreography, back of the house management, selecting the songs, writing the lyrics, every aspect of a musical. And guess what? After 2 months, they did it. They did it. And I had but one rule the entire 2-month time. One rule. No adult was allowed to participate in any of the creation. No adult was allowed to participate. They could only facilitate. Yet at the very same time, all the professional educators involved, they were just taking care of business. They were just going about their normal day-to-day routines, and the kids have ownership. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is that's me with more hair in the picture. That's really But that young man standing in front of me was the young man that gave me the most difficulty at the beginning of the project. He's captain of the basketball team. He was going to lose practice time. And this was so successful that there was a documentary called Classroom Close-Up. They came in, they recorded it, it was on TV, it was this wonderful moment. And it wasn't until I saw it that my perspective was changed. This star athlete said this. Now, at no point were they in complete control. But sitting in the wings, we empowered these students to do it, and they did it. He went on to play football and lacrosse at high school, and then he went on to play football and lacrosse for Penn State. So it means the world to me that one of my former students said that. Now, switching gears, because I really want to hit into technology, Anthony Damaso sent me a video on this thing, this free resource called Tone Matrix, and it's available on a free website called Audio Tool, and you have all the information in your books and stuff. Now, this Tone Matrix works like this. These boxes vertically represent pitch, the boxes horizontally represent moments in time. You can either have a student compose something by clicking and unclicking on boxes, or you can have a student improvise using the computer on top of a band actually performing. Check this out. I myself, at some time in the past, was really nervous that computers are going to take over the world, Terminator style. And when all of these free things came out online and all these kids were making music using computers, I was like, nobody's going to play guitar again, nobody's going to play the drums again, nobody's ever going to go see the symphony orchestra perform, and nobody's even going to know who the heck the Who was. They're just going to be like, who? Oh, come on. But then Little Kids Rock happened. And just like in yesterday's Modern Band video that we all saw, it's not just this, it's also that. It's also the computer. Here is a video of this guy, Andrew Bird. He's playing just the violin. On the floor in front of him is a looping pedal, a pedal that records, and it has a certain set amount of time that dumps into the computer. And there's a distortion pedal, so he's recording in 3/4 time groups of 8 measures. Google Andrew Bird. There's some fascinating things that he does. He does it with amazing, just a vast array of instruments. It's all based on music technology. Other people are doing it, but that's just one of them. Now, this final section of this morning's keynote is on preparedness. Now, I don't want to frighten anybody. We're not going to do the how-to and time management and organization stuff. But preparedness exists on many levels. When I've traveled around and I've visited classrooms in just about every corner of this country for Little Kids Rock, I saw that there was 2 classifications of classes. There was the unprepared class and prepared class. Sounds bad, right? But it's not. It just means that in prepared class, the teacher found the best practice to help them organize all of their materials and their thoughts and their instruction, and they could hit it. In the unprepared class, they just didn't have the time, or they weren't able to identify said best practice to allow them that extra time to get organized. That's all it means. So if you are one of those people that feel a little bit flustered, maybe a little disorganized from time to time, or a little bit unprepared for lessons, latch on to Little Kids Rock and latch on to the Modern Band Pedagogy for dear life, because it's all in here. It's in every one of the 371 pages of your teacher's manual. It's in every page of this best practices book, and it's in every moment of all of these sessions. We're not stealing, we're not borrowing. We're working together as a massive cohort so that we can all create new best practices that we'll all share. And I'm not the only one that has been able to do this. Scott Burstein has been doing the same thing. And check out what he has to say about it. Question, if you have a concern, if there's something that you're struggling with or you want to run through, go to the hang, ask a question, and 12 to 1,500 of your closest friends can help. Now here in Little Kids Rock, here in Fort Collins, Colorado, the Little Kids Rock chapter here, these 6 teachers, Kevin Brinkman, Nancy Conover, Samantha Crandall, Karen Everett, Jasmine Faulkner, and Melissa Flail, all worked together to form a cohort. In this cohort, they created a number of lesson plans and best practices to share with you guys. Now, inside of these pages, I think it's 3745, your best practices book, it actually outlines everything you need to do to implement the blues. And every extension, every activity, every correlation to a standard is in there. There's rubrics in here to help you demonstrate and show that the students are demonstrating what they're doing. And there's actually even an entire year plan in there. So thank you guys for putting it together. All right. Last videos I'm going to be sharing with you today.
Where is the admirable Rodney Didmar?
Rodney is a pretty righteous organizer. Check this out. Thank you, Rodney. Now, we have teachers across the country. You guys have come here from across the country. And we are expanding, and we are going deeper. And this entire modern man pedagogy is getting shared with everyone. And it's not just here. We've had people from Sweden, people from Bermuda, people from England, all want to find out what's going on in the United States where all the kids are rocking out. And you know what? They might not all be rocking out, but they will be.